welcome to Tech Insider Update for February 2023. Appreciate you guys taking some time with us today. This event is a rapid fire meeting where we go through all the changes and updates that we feel like that you guys need to be aware of as it comes to Microsoft technologies. So a little bit about JourneyTEAM. We've been around, this is our 30th year in business. We're a little over 150 people, and we've been working across the Microsoft stack. We've won various different awards and have various statuses with Microsoft, as you can see on the slide here. Won a couple of Partner of the Year awards, Inner Circle, and various other things that we've achieved with all the experience that we have as an organization. So a little bit about us as an organization across the stack. This slide gives a great view of really where we play. Whether it be on ERP or accounting systems, customer relationship management systems, CRMs, cloud, Microsoft 365 and Azure, collaboration and content, data and BI, and then we also have a change management and adoption practice. And all these things across the stack, we work as business consultants to be able to help you understand not just the technology, but the business value that you're going to achieve out of using those technologies. So today, my name is Mark Mickelson. I'm your host. We're going to have Brandon Gorton from our CRM practice, Grant Brimhall from our ERP team, Jason Fife from our data engineering team, Kevin Zollinger from our collaboration and content management team, Jamye Few, one of our cloud specialists, and then Jim Hill from our BI team that will be leading us through our agenda today. And that agenda looks like this. We're going to start off with Kevin in collaboration and content management, move on to some updates around Power BI, Microsoft Purview, Dynamics 365, Azure AD, Exchange Online, Microsoft Unified Endpoint Manager, Business Central, Microsoft Viva, and then we'll wrap up with some important upcoming events to share with everyone. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin on collaboration and content management.
Hey Tech Insiders, my name is Kevin Zollinger from the CCM team, coming to you not live from Brighton. Today we're going to talk about having fun in teams, and I'll tell you why that's important. Let's go.
Okay, so the idea that I would record the intro for my part at Brighton is important to me for two reasons. The first is that we want to make life at work fun. And it's never going to be as much fun as hanging out at Brighton on a snowboard, but there are things that we can do to make work fun, or to coin my term, funner. And one of those things that Microsoft has given us is a bunch of new emoticons. And as we expose our user community to Teams, let's make sure that they know that they can use those emoticons to express emotion and to help each other know how they feel. And it's a little tiny thing, but I think it can make a big difference. The second thing that Microsoft has done that's important to me is they give us now the ability to schedule a chat. And so if you're like me and you're always on 24/7 and you're always thinking about what's going to happen next, you can schedule that chat so that it goes out later. And I use that all the time. I'll be up late at night and I'll have an idea. I'll put the chat in and I will schedule it for the next morning bright and early. That does two things. It makes the person that I sent that chat to think that I am in front of the keyboard at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though I'm not. And the second thing is it lets me recognize and respect their personal time. And so I'm not asking them to look at a chat at 11 o'clock on Friday just because I'm silly enough to work. Other thing that I use a lot is you can take shared content and pop it out. And so if you go to the top of this Teams window, there will be a pop-out button. You click that and that lets you separate the video from the shared content. And I use that in almost every meeting where there's a shared screen. Teams Premium is coming. Not a lot of details yet about how that's going to work and what it looks like. Deleted chat and Teams should be live in all of your tenants. The one thing to know about that is that only applies to chats. It doesn't apply to team messages, and it only applies the message that you posted on your side. So if I send a message to Mark and I delete the message I sent, Mark still has his copy of it, but my copy goes away. Not yet live for everybody, coming soon. You'll have the @everyone group tag in a group chat so that you can give extra notification of those people. In OneDrive, as you're sharing, you will get notified if there's a sensitivity label applied to that document. We're going to talk about Microsoft Purview, and sensitivity labels are a part of that. If you're sharing content in Teams, there's a new presenter view that should be available. This last 2 points are pretty big. Teams 2.0 is coming soon. This is a completely rewritten copy of Teams. It's going to use about half the memory as the current Teams. It's going to use a lot less space. The download for those of us that are on Microsoft is going to be much smaller. If you're on a Macintosh, it'll be bigger because they're downloading a bunch of things that aren't already in the Mac OS. But it's going to be faster, more responsive, and take less resources on your machine. I've always been annoyed at how much space Teams takes up, and so I'm excited to see Teams 2.0 roll out. Microsoft promises that it'll be out next month. My suspicion is that we'll get pieces and chunks of it, and it'll roll out over time. But watch for that to happen. The last thing is, if you happen to be using Teams free in your organization, end of life of that is April 12th. And of the 100 people that we're talking to today, that may affect 1 or 2 of you, but you need to prepare for that and be aware of it. You can see which version of Teams you are by going into Teams, clicking on your picture, and if you're in that Teams Free Classic, it'll tell you that. So be aware and take steps to transfer. So let's talk about Teams sprawl. We've talked about making work funner, and we've talked about Teams. Teams is a great tool, and a lot of us roll it out without any kind of control. What does that cause? That causes us to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of sites that are in everybody's face. You'll get a lot of sites that are just 1 or 2 people that may be active for a week or 2, and then they just don't get used anymore. Why is that bad? That gets you a bunch of content, a bunch of places. In some cases, you don't know what is where, you don't know how to find stuff. It also means that the people that are in your team's environment have a million teams trying to figure out where it is that they want to spend time, and it's just hard. How do you fix it? Well, you can lock it down and you can say only IT can create a team. That creates friction. I don't think that's a good idea. It's also fairly expensive. What we have is we have 2 options for you to consider. One is Team Hub and the other is Orchestra. Team Hub looks just like this. This is a solution that we have developed here, and it allows you to have a process where a new team creation request is approved by someone, and you get to define what that process looks like. And so we aren't asking IT to create teams, but we are asking people to approve those teams before they're created. It also has this iconography, and you can choose your own, so that people can look at a team and know what kind of team it is. They'll know what the purpose of that team is just at a glance. And using it here internally, we find that to be very, very powerful. The other thing that we have is we partner with a company called Orchestra. This is a view of their dashboard. Orchestra has a full life cycle view of what is happening in your organization with teams. It'll tell you what teams have gone stale. It'll tell you what teams don't have owners. It has a process where you can depreciate or deprecate teams as they do go stale. Both of those solutions are very powerful. I love Teams, but I love even more the idea that we've given you tools and techniques that you can use to manage teams in your environment. Lastly, let's talk about some self-promotion. If you visit JourneyTEAM.com/blog or find us at JourneyTEAM1 on YouTube, we have committed to providing for you information that will make your life easier and your users' lives easier. And this is me personally committing. If you'll find me on YouTube or find us on YouTube or find me on LinkedIn and say, hey, Zollinger, I hate this about Microsoft. I commit to you that I will see if I can make it easier. I can't promise that I will, but I'll commit to trying that. And then if we can make this a 2-way conversation, I can leverage experts here at JourneyTEAM to try and make your life easier, and we'd love to do that. The picture on the screen is Jonathan Duncan, or John as we call him, and that is a quick and dirty view through Viva Insights. You should go find that. You should watch it. It'll make your life better. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Hill. I'm a part of our BI and analytics team here at JourneyTEAM. I'm excited to share some of the things that I love about Power BI and what are some of the new features. What I really like is that Power BI is constantly enhancing. New releases come out every month, and I'm going to highlight a few of those today. So let's start out. First of all, one of the cool new features is the ability to have multiple audiences. As you publish things out to the Power BI service, in the past, you had one workspace, and that workspace could be shared in one app. Well, now Microsoft has enhanced that capability. So when you go to the publish or to the update app, in the past, you just got to go to the setup menu. Now they've added 2 more features, content and audiences. Content allows you to use these little icons next to the names of the reports to make them visible or not visible. And then in addition, you can define which audiences have access to those particular reports or dashboards. And you can see you can add users or groups. Really gives you a lot of control over app, which is where typically companies will share their content with their users. All right, some other cool features. Power BI has added to the ribbon an optimize menu item. This allows you to pause visuals as you're developing them. Sometimes if you have a very complicated visual with lots of measures in it, it may take a few minutes to refresh. But now you have the ability to pause that visual while you're adding new things so that you don't have to wait for refreshes. In addition, the performance analyzer capability has been moved over underneath this optimized menu. The next thing that I want to do is I want to demonstrate first of all, sorry, jumped ahead of myself. First of all, the slicers, which we all use to filter the elements on a page. In the past, you could choose the slicer type by going to the 3 ellipses next to the name. But you'll notice that menu has changed. Now you select the slicer, and underneath the visualization pane, now you have the ability to choose which type of a slicer this is. Things like vertical lists, drop downs, or a new one called tile, which kind of replaces the old chiclet slicer that you had to download. And we'll demonstrate that a little bit in just a minute. All right. So now I'd like to go to a demonstration of how one new key feature works. This is called field parameters. So in this demo, I'm going to use a data set that has some sales measures in it. And what we're going to do, you'll notice at the bottom right now, I've got 2 visuals that show sales amount. What I'm going to do is in the top under modeling underneath new parameters, there's a new attribute called fields. These field parameters are things that can let you choose multiple different measures to use in your visuals. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to call it field parameter. And then I go to my measure table and I can choose a handful of different measures. So I'm going to grab sales amount. I'm going to choose average sales. And then I'm also going to choose margin. Now with these 3 measures, I can create them, or I want to point out this little add slicer to the page will let you put that slicer on the page right away. So I'm going to leave that on, hit create. Takes a second. In the background now, it's creating a new table that has those different elements in it that I selected. And if you'll notice over on the right-hand side, underneath the data, there's a new thing called field parameters. And if I expand that, you can see there's a field parameter. If I click on that, you'll see the DAX code behind it. And those numbers at the end of each line indicate the order that they'll appear in your slicer. So you have a lot of control. All right, so now let me resize my slicer. You'll notice there's my new parameter values, and I can go into the slicer settings, and that's where I can choose to turn these over to a tile like I described earlier. So let's make that into a slicer that's a tile. But now that slicer isn't affecting my visuals because they have the old parameters in them, the old measures. So in order to change that, I select one of my visuals. I come over to the list. I'm going to take the sales amount out, and I'm going to add the field parameter into my values. And now you'll notice the elements inside that visual changed. So let me change the other one as well. Let me take out sales amount, add my field parameter, and there you have it. So now if I click on my slicer, you can see the values change in the visuals. But the headers are still not right because they have the fixed values that we demonstrate or that were added originally. To change that, you go to the Format Visuals with the visual selected, go into the General, and there under Title, you'll see an F of X button, a function button. If you click on that, now you can go and choose from your menu the field parameter. And then you can say, okay, and that applies a dynamic header now to your visual. So let's do it on the second visual as well. Go ahead and we'll change it also to use the field parameter. And now the title for that visual should change as well. And you'll notice if I select a different one, it automatically changes. So let's try one other thing. Let's add another visual to this page. So let's choose a tree map visual. So I click on the icon for tree map. Let me reposition it. Once that's in place and sized, let's add to this visual our field parameter. So we drop it in the values pane. And then we need to make it more interesting, let's add another attribute to this tree map. Let's go and add the sales territory. So now you can see here we have a dynamic visual that changes with the slicer. And in this case, the header changes dynamically. We don't have to go change it again. So that's how field parameters work. I hope you'll take advantage of them. They're very useful. Okay, just a few more highlights that I want from the things that have changed in Power BI. Composite models have changed. A composite model is when you can add tables from another data set. And in the past, you could connect to that other data set, but you could only use one of your tables to slice the composite model. But if you had more than one that you had added, you couldn't do that. That has been changed, and you can take advantage of connecting data or tables from other data sets that have been published to your Power BI service. There are several new DAX functions, and I don't have a lot of time to go into these, but let me highlight a few. Index, offset, and window. Index lets you create an ordered index that you can reference from other calculations. Offset is very similar. It lets you create an offset, and using values like partition by and order by, you can organize your data in a way that you can grab different elements relative to what you're selecting. And window is really cool because you can use window to do things like rolling averages. So if you wanted to look at a 3-month rolling average or a 6-month rolling average, window now makes it really easy for you to do that. Other new functions, evaluate and log, to CSV and to JSON. These are features that allow you to help debug the measures that you're creating using tables. And this is a really cool thing, but you need to use that in conjunction with other tools like SQL Server Profiler or DAX Debug Output that is from the SQL BI guys. So you can look online and find out more details about those. There's also a new feature that allows you to upload a Power BI file to a workspace. This is great because now you don't have to open up the Power BI file and then publish it. You can actually start from the service and pull a file up into your workspace. There's also some changes to creating subscriptions where you can include the changes that you've made in the subscription that you defined. And then finally, there are lots and lots of newly released visuals out there that you can take advantage of. There's way more than I can talk to, but go to AppSource and you can see some of those newly released visuals. Well, I hope you'll take advantage of a few of these things. Appreciate the opportunity to share them with you.
Hey everyone, Jason Fife here. I'm a data engineering manager for JourneyTEAM, and we have a team of 6 data engineers that love to help organizations manage data. So getting started, Microsoft Purview provides a unified data governance solution to help manage and govern your on-premises, multi-cloud, and SaaS data. The product was first released as Azure Purview in September 2021, But then just a few months later, in April 2022, Microsoft announced that Azure Purview would become Microsoft Purview. So what's the difference? Microsoft Purview is essentially a combination of the former Azure Purview and Microsoft 365 compliance portfolio. So now you're able to maintain data governance, security, and compliance all in one place. And the awesome thing about Purview, especially when comparing to other data governance and compliance platforms, is that Microsoft Purview is an Azure service, so its spend is run under a pay-as-you-go model. Just a month after the name change to Microsoft Purview, Microsoft unveiled the new Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. And as you can see from this slide, the three main pillars are databases, analytics, and governance. So what this means to me is that Microsoft is serious about the success and validity of Purview in helping organizations get their arms around their data estate. So here's a look at the architecture. Connections are created to data sources, and catalogs are then created on metadata from those sources. Microsoft Purview helps organizations by providing data discovery, traceability, and searchability. So why is this so valuable? Well, say for example, you need to identify all versions of Sales Header, what the original source is for Sales Header, where that entity is shared, and who has access to it, and what Power BI reports are used to transform and or to consume the model table. Okay, so Microsoft Purview provides search on that Sales Header table, which provides answers to those questions. Okay, so looking here at the Microsoft Purview governance portal, you're able to either search for that Sales Header entity or browse for it. Once you find what you're looking for, you're able to see lineage of what Power BI reports are using that table, as well as what the activity in the Azure data pipeline that transformed it, and finally providing lineage to the original data source. And that source could be a file in Azure Data Lake Storage, which isn't shown on this slide. Also, within the governance portal, you're able to enrich assets by creating definitions and govern security and sharing parameters. So here's an example of a Purview implementation that I built. On the far right, you can see a table called User Sample Final. And then to the left of that is a pipeline transformation. And to the left of that is the source of the user sample table. And then to the left of that highlighted is also another data pipeline transformation. And then finally, furthest left is the source file stored in Azure Data Lake Storage. Okay, so getting started with Purview involves creating an account within your subscription, and then traversing to the Microsoft Purview governance portal. And once you're in the governance portal, I'd recommend that you click on the guided tour highlighted on the upper right there on the slide, which walks you through setting up connections, assets, collections, and making use of the platform. And I'd recommend giving yourself plenty of time, because piecing this solution together can be a bit complex, or just let us know if we can help. Thanks so much for your time.
Hello, everybody. This is Brandon Gorton from the Customer Relationship Management team. And today I will be talking about three things mainly. So I got my typical beating the Sales Accelerator drum, as well as I'm going to talk about Omnichannel, and then also some of the updated portal licensing. So real quick, what I wanted to do is when it comes to the Sales Accelerator, and specifically with sequences, is that this is probably one of the most underutilized features and implementations that I see, and kind of talking to customers and prospective customers, in that it's a feature that they are paying for now that it is included in the Sales Enterprise license, where you get a certain number of sequences each user can do. And I just wanted to kind of showcase kind of what this looks like. I think I had some screenshots last time as far as how you set it up and what does that look like. But when you're actually interacting with it, this is this little area where I have the two red bars on the top and bottom, where it essentially acts as a playbook, but it's embedded in the lead record. And so I can see there directly, right above the timeline, that it gives me some steps. I need to call the customer, I need to send a follow-up email, follow up with the customer, send a summary email. So it lays out all the steps that I need to do and or complete to be successful in this lead or sales engagement. So, and that can all be defined depending on what your process is, but this is kind of how it is realized from the end user's perspective on the form. So I think that this feature is really cool. Again, I think it's highly underutilized, and most people are already paying for it because they have a sales enterprise license for their end users as well. So I just kind of wanted to do a call out for this. If you need any help as far as how do you utilize this feature, how do you get the most out of it, please reach out to us and or just go play with it. So next up, I have a video before we play it. So it's related to the Omnichannel chat. So some things that I wanted to call out, especially with Omnichannels, like Omnichannel capabilities and multi-channels related to email, SMS, chat bots, even kind of social media direct messages on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. This is kind of, this is the future, right? This is where you are, as you are doing business, you're fielding questions from a number of different sources, and all of which are targeting a different type of audience. And you can funnel all that to your customer service agents. So I think that I think that's really cool. As far as how you can use Omnichannel, so what I'm going to be showcasing is specifically the website chat add-on. So I'll go ahead and play the video, and then I'll kind of talk through some of these elements here. So first of all, you can see that I'm in my environment. I got this little chat widget in the bottom right corner. So this can be embedded on your website or portal, and you can have it hooked up to a Power Virtual Agent bot. So for example, I'm typing a message right now, but you can see that I didn't even finish typing it before the Power Virtual Agent bot started giving me suggestions. So you can have it configured to where the Power Virtual Agent bot is giving you not only messages, kind of like, hey, how are you, so on and so forth, but it can also give you some suggestions as far as, hey, I can just click buttons. I can have an entire conversation with the Power Virtual Agent bot and not need to type a single thing to have that conversation and get my questions answered, so on and so forth, depending on how you have that virtual agent bot set up. So that's really powerful. And then as you can see is that I can kind of click through some different elements related to different products to get different types of information returned back to me. And after each segue, I can be, I'll be asked like, hey, did this answer my question, yes or no? And, kind of depending on what I select there, it'll put me back and reset the Power Virtual Agent bot. So at any point, I can also have this reach out to an actual customer service rep and agent, and it will transfer me. And I'm about to change my tab so I can show you what that interface looks like. So here I get my prompt. You'll see in the top right corner my little green bubble. That means that I am available. I can take on incoming messages. So that's why I get that prompt. If I was already busy in a chat, phone call, whatever, with based on whatever my availability is, I might not get that message. And if none of the reps were available, it would put it into the queue. So you can see here on the left with this interface, it's a lot more like a traditional call center. I get some information pop up related to the record, the conversation. So it's pulling contact information. I can see recent cases if I had any. I can also create a case if I choose to do so. I see my timeline. And then also on the left, I have the conversation. So I can there respond back to my customer or prospective customer, and I can have a conversation with them, and it is synchronous, real time. So that's really powerful. So a couple other things while I'm kind of talking to myself there is you can have it to where you can set it up with pre and post conversation surveys, right? So if you are doing unauthenticated users that are responding and kind of having conversations on your website, which is pretty typical. You can ask them preliminary questions, like, for example, hey, what is your account number? And you could capture that account number details, even though they're not authenticated, you might not know who they are. The agent would be able to look up that account number before they even engage and have more information ready for them to rock and roll. So it can be extended. This is a really simple version, and obviously everything that I've shown it comes out of the box in the trial of customer service and omnichannel. So if you would like to play with any of this, you can go download the trial and kind of give it a whirl. And then if you have any issues, please reach out to us. But there's a lot of powerful things that you can do just with the chat, and it is as easy as embedding a script on a website to enable this, and then making sure that your end user is set up to receive presence as well as availability, so on and so forth. Some other kind of quick call outs related to the chat that I wanted to mention is that you can have it to where you can accept downloads from the end user. You can do screen shares, you can do video calls. So there's kind of a lot of really cool things that you can do with the chat that you can completely configure and make it all your own. So, and then the last call out I'll do is that in most situations, the customer service reps are not just fielding cases, right? They may or may not be creating cases depending on the conversation, but that can be extended to where you can surface orders in this screen as well, right? So they might need to be able to create an order, transfer it to a sales rep, or just be able to fulfill that order right there. So they can have that capability, even though it's not on the not on the default form. That is completely in the wheelhouse and part of the wonderful nature of omnichannel. So next up, this slide is a lot less exciting. Omnichannel's fun. This slide's more related to licensing. For those that have looked at the Power Apps portal within the last couple of years, and as you've probably done any kind of calculations as far as, is it a good fit? The Power Apps portal was pretty tough unless your use case was very, very, very low volume, because it just got really expensive really quick, especially how you could have an end user be charged a login fee every day of the month. So like it was, in a lot of respects, it was cost prohibitive. But the good news is that they have completely revamped the portal licensing structure. So it's not per day, it's user per month. So I kind of wanted to do that call out. I put a link as far as into the pricing in here. So please, if you have been looking at a portal in the last little while, or that you ruled it out previously, now might be a really good time to kind of reevaluate your portal needs and requirements and how it fits into your landscape of achieving business objectives. So that's kind of the last call I wanted to do, because I think that is a pretty big change, and that's Dynamics.
Hey everybody, my name is Jamie with the cloud team here at JourneyTEAM, and we are excited to share a couple of really good updates to you guys for you guys to either look for, implement, or be aware of in the M365 space and Azure Cloud, Azure AD, etc. The number one right here is Azure AD branding options have been updated. We used to just be able to kind of control the login page. Now you can the login dialog, I should say. Now you can control a lot more details about that page, including adding a header, footer. You can do CSS styling on that page now. So there's a lot of things you can give to your end users and people that are logging into your system, whether it's more direction, more information, content that gives them links to help, that type of thing that's a little bit more easily accessible on the page. So very cool call out. We always recommend you add custom branding to your tenant, because that helps your users understand that they're logging into the right place. While we know that can be spoofed on occasions, every little bit you can do helps. We know some customers that even rotate that maybe seasonally, so it's a little different every time, every couple of months, so the users are aware of that. Also adds a little bit of color and fun, right, when you're logging into the humdrum of your daily job, right? Number two, dynamic groups have the ability to be paused now for processing. We use dynamic groups a lot for licensing scenarios and some other things as well. The big one obviously always is licensing. And sometimes you need to make large, big swath changes to things where you may be adding 100 folks to a new dynamic group that's going to then apply a license or do something else that group does, give it a permission to something or something along those lines. You now have the ability, which you can see at the bottom of this little screenshot, to actually pause the processing for that group while you guys go through and make your changes, which is super helpful when you don't want to have things constantly going in and out of scope for something while you're doing, especially when testing, but definitely when you go into production. Number matching in Azure AD MFA push will be enabled by Microsoft this month. It may already be showing up in some of your tenants. I will be sharing some links in the chat here as soon as I'm done to this and several other things I'm going to be talking about here today, so that you have direct information you can go get about this. But just know that we highly recommend enabling number matching in the near term for improved security on your sign-ins. Relevant things that this will affect: SSPR, single sign-on password reset, combined registration scenarios, right? Even AD, if you're using ADFS with an adapter, all those changes, you'll start seeing those as early as February 27th, I believe, is the date they're targeting there. And as those services deploy, what you'll have is some users may see the number match and others don't, which is why we recommend that you go ahead and start enabling that now and notifying your users you're going to enable this, so that everyone is getting the same common scenario and you don't have some people getting the number and some people not. So be aware of that. I'll share a link in the chat here in just a minute. IPv6 is coming to AAD. This is going to give you the ability to use that format starting in March 31, 2023. So if you're a network nerd like some of our guys are, and you want to know about how all this stuff works, there you go. I'll share a link in the notes as well. Just an update that is coming soon. Cross-tenant sync is a big deal that we've been involved with. We actually were involved with the private preview with Microsoft on this, have learned a lot and are already rolling this out for a couple of customers in preview. Who should use this is the big question that everybody wants to ask. Organizations that own multiple Azure AD tenants, and want to streamline, if you want to streamline your intra-organization, like cross-tenant application scenarios, this is perfect for you and keeps you from having to necessarily always merge all these tenants, especially sometimes when you need to keep them separate for various reasons, whether it's compliance or other reasons. So like I said, we've done some private preview. We would love to talk to you about how to implement this. It is currently in preview. So we can help you roll out a pilot of this and see if it's something you want to move into when it goes GA. So be aware that is out there now and available. Let's talk a little bit about Exchange Online and some of those updates. PowerShell. I'm a PowerShell geek. I love it. Updates that are coming is that it's some of the other stuff is getting long in the tooth, and so it's going away. As of June 1, if you do any remote PowerShell connections, RPS connections that use these older things like new-PS session, or even the old modules like V1 and V2, they are going to be going away. They're going to stop working. So if you've got old scripts that are out there running as scheduled tasks that are doing certain things, or all that type of stuff, you need to go through, review those, and update those to the newest stuff, the newer methods of doing that piece. I'll throw a link out in the chat for that as well. Exchange Server 2013 is coming to end of support in April. So if you've got an older Exchange server sitting out there in 2013, you need to get that updated. It's going to work, but it won't be supported in when you go out of a supported state. And then, of course, sure as you do, you'll have trouble, just like every time your dishwasher goes out of stops working the minute the warranty expires. So be aware that that's coming. I'll put a link out there as well. And related to that, there's now the ability for you to possibly, if everything lines up for you, to decommission your last Exchange server. So if you maintain an on-premise Exchange server just for recipient management in Exchange hybrid environments, right? Even if you've moved all of your recipients to Exchange Online, all your mailboxes are up in Exchange Online, you may be able to shut down that last Exchange server, because we can actually install the Exchange hybrid tools, management tools on a server, and you can simply access those with PowerShell from that side and do a lot of that maintenance there much more simply. I'll throw a link in the chat, but very cool feature that will allow you to decommission that. If you're on the previous thing, you've got 2013 Exchange in play and you don't want to upgrade it, and you only use it for this scenario, maybe this is a chance to start putting that in place. So last but not least, let's talk about Unified Endpoint Manager. Some people like to call a piece of that they talk a lot about is Intune. So there is a grace period status that is now going to be available for Android devices. The users will see a date by which the device must be compliant, and they will get instructions on how to become compliant. And if they don't, that device will be marked non-compliant. So we're getting some good feedback here to the end users so they can understand what's expected of them. This is a cool little feature if you've got Android devices running around in your environment. We have a new filter app and policy assignment scenario inside of the devices of AD called join type. It's actually called device trust type inside of the filter property. And this will allow you to begin looking at and filtering devices and apps based on their join type, like Azure AD joined, hybrid Azure AD joined, Azure AD registered, etc., which will give you the ability to force some things on registered devices which aren't fully joined, but you need them to get a certain policy. It'll allow you to begin filtering that out and segmenting those folks off to get a separate policy set and things like that. Very cool tool set coming in play there that gives us much more granularity about controlling which devices are accessing our systems. Lastly, on the Intune side is the new troubleshooting, or the troubleshooting pane inside of Intune has some new updates coming, some new visibility, a little bit more detail. I've even put a note in the bottom of how you can go enable this little preview view that you've got where you can try it now and take a look at it. You'll get that when you see the recording and or get the slide deck. So I think that ties it up for me. I'll throw some links in the chat. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them. I'll answer them as best I can or find somebody who can.
Hey, this is Grant. I'm with the ERP team. I didn't get a chance to update the latest slides, but wanted to give you a plug on Business Central 2023 Release 1. If you Google, or I guess I should say, if you Bing Release 2023 Release Wave 1, you'll see a few items that are going to be available in April. And just to give you a little candy on what's available, GL statistical accounts are coming, easier exchange rate maintenance, more preview posting options, and syncing master data across companies. So we'll have more information on those in our upcoming next quarter, but wanted to give a quick shout out to those. What I wanted to focus on here in the Tech Insider was just to give a call out to the web services that are available to help you integrate with Business Central. There are OData, API, and SOAP web services that you can make use of. They all allow create, read, and update. You can do API calls that are bound to a specific record. You can do API calls that are unbound and perform some kind of a procedure across multiple records. So it's really flexible. The one thing about SOAP is they have announced an end of life. They haven't given a date yet, but they're encouraging everyone to either go OData or do your web services with APIs. And then, of course, with the web services they have now, they've end of lifed the key, the web service key, and in favor of authentication going via OAuth 2.0. If you have any questions on that, we're happy to help you out and get you started and configured with that kind of authentication. The other way we get a lot of requests for integrating with Business Central is if you have Dataverse or Dynamics 365 sales set up. Natively within Business Central, you can configure Business Central. You just give it the URL of your Dataverse Dynamics 365 instance, and right away out of the box, BC will create a bunch of integration tables for you where you have sales order in BC versus against sales order in CRM or Dataverse. You have customers in BC against accounts in Dataverse. All those integration table mappings are created for you. The downside to that is if you want to adjust those, or if you want to create table data mappings that don't come out of the box, all of it is going to be done through AL code, which can be slow and tedious. What we've done here at JourneyTEAM to make some of that additional mappings or editing the out-of-the-box mappings is we've created a Dataverse Enhanced Configurator app, which allows you to do all that configuration inside of BC Web Client rather than having to write cumbersome AL code. So to give you a few examples of what that Enhanced Configurator app does is we've enabled inside of BC Web Client without having to write any AL code. You can take the out-of-the-box table integrations that the connection creates for you. You can add and change any of the field mappings you want. You can also, if you were to create, say, a fixed assets entity inside of your Dataverse, you could add new table integrations such that you could map to that fixed asset entity in Dataverse over to the fixed assets that already exist in Business Central. And then one of the most important things I think we've enabled is just the ability to export and import all of your table integrations and field mappings between environments. That can be really tedious as you're testing and wanting to promote from test to UAT and finally to production. That could be a very tedious and cumbersome exercise to make sure you get all that work perfectly detailed in production. So having that import-export tool is a great thing to enable a clean go live. And then we've also added a menu that helps coordinate all the different configuration and troubleshooting steps that you may have. Out of the box, they're kind of scattered throughout Business Central, but we've made a common menu that helps put all those Dataverse pages all in a single spot. So if you have any questions about that, if you've got a CRM instance and you want to connect it with Business Central, we have some tools that can help make that a lot faster and enable you to do that right in the BC web client instead of writing AL code.
Okay, so Kevin again from Collaboration and Content Management. Let's talk Viva, and we'll be quick because we're running a little late. I've highlighted 4 here that I think are the ones that are the most ready to get excited about. Engage and Engage Leadership Corner is more or less Yammer all grown up. Topics allows you to teach people what you're doing at your company by magic. It may someday be powered by ChatGPT. We know that that's the big hot new buzzword that we all want to talk about. Goals is great, especially for organizations that are doing OKR, and Viva Sales just seems like a tremendously good way for you to take the drudgery out of the day-to-day sales activities that happen in your organization. There are prices listed on the slide so you can see what you might pay per person per month. In some cases, it's a sliding scale depending on how much goodness you want from whatever Viva it is that you're talking about. We are spending a lot of time implementing it here and implementing it for customers. And so if you have Viva questions, reach out. I said earlier that we'll respond to anything that you ask us how to do, and Viva's included in that. So if you have Viva questions, let us know and we'll post answers. Viva pricing is complicated. And so if you have questions about that, let us help you. Okay, now I'm done.
All right, so just a few things that are coming up for us. Our Dynamics 365 Sales Sherpa program is on April 3rd. Our Business Central Sherpa is April 11th, and our Marketing Sherpa is May 15th. And for the as well as our Power App Sherpa is August 14th. Those of you who don't know what our Sherpa program is, it's a guided self-implementation approach to where you can get up faster and quicker into those technologies. If you'd like more information on those and get to understand those a little bit better, please reach out to us, put it on your survey form. We're happy to give you more details on it. Also, the next Tech Insider update is May 23rd. So look forward to hopefully having all of you back for that one with the updates that we'll have that have come out after the new releases for Dynamics, as well as other things that have been announced with Microsoft over the next couple months. So with that, we'll go ahead and move to any questions, any additional Q&A that we have.
So that we just got a question about Teams 2.0. And just to be clear, Teams 2.0 was leaked or announced yesterday, I think. And so this is brand new information. We don't know a ton about it. We do know that they're writing it from the ground up using React and that they're moving away from Electron. And that's pretty sausage making language, I know, because we're talking about how we develop software. But Electron added a fair amount of overhead as the application loaded onto your machine, and by doing it in a more native manner, I feel like this is a word soup a little bit. It'll load faster on your machine. It'll be more responsive. It's going to give you better battery life because it's doing less. What's the word I'm looking for? It's doing less implementation or less translation as it runs on your machine. It's going to take months, I think, before we see the entirety of it show up. But I am really excited because Teams has always been a heavy application that drives our devices hard. And so to have that be an easier job for our computers is great news.
So another question that was asked by Jill, what type of Azure does your team recommend for starting a small, less than 500 gigabyte data lake? We have Azure SQL and use Power BI Pro.
Yeah, so this is Jason Fife, data engineering. Good question. If your need is to create a data lake solution less than 500 gig, I think it depends on the format of your source data. If your source data is maybe consuming API endpoints, pulling JSON files, then we would use Azure Data Lake Storage to pull from the API endpoints into data lake storage. And then from there, oftentimes it's helpful to leverage Azure SQL database to pull those JSON files, transform them, flatten them out, and store them as SQL tables. And then that would facilitate you being able to create a dimensional model for Power BI to connect to consume. So it just depends on the format of your source data.
We'll go ahead and wrap up. If you do think of something, please reach out, email us. I'm happy to assist you guys in every way we can. And look forward to hopefully hearing and engaging with you all soon. Thank you.